So good morning, good morning, good morning. Today is again 10 a.m. on a Wednesday, and Norma Talks begins, this time on frozen memories. Actually, I did a workshop. I ended up being two small workshops actually on this topic a couple of weekends ago, and everyone really enjoyed it. So it made me think, I'll need to put something out about how our memories freeze in space and time. Years ago, I talked about this as being the inner child, but I realized more appropriate in this time and age, people don't talk about inner children work much anymore, but really the reality is it's a memory. We freeze in our memories. And how you can realize this works is that when you think back, often there are memories that crop up. Some of them are painful ones that we don't want to think about. Some of them embarrassing ones that, again, we don't want to think about. But other ones are just always there. And I often also hear people say, I don't have any memories. Now, I was one of those. I didn't have a lot of memories, and a lot of my childhood was blacked out. We now know that when you have trauma in your life, whether it be a sexual abuse, physical abuse, or any emotional heavy-duty trauma, is that your memory banks seem to change. And a lot of reason for that is this frozen memory element of how we freeze in space and time. If you get to go into a memory and start talking to yourself in the memory, as a form of gestalt, you'll say, what ends up happening is that when you talk to them and you know what questions to ask, you'll find is that they do not know they've grown up. So it's like, and if they say, oh yes, I've grown on up, you don't take a stop there, because if you ask them, oh, what age have you grown up to be? Let's say you're talking to a 12-year-old, oh, they'll say, oh, I'm 16. Because that will be the next time that you froze in that emotion. Because the key is, what a lot of people don't realize in your memories is that there's an emotion around the memory. As there's an emotion around the memory, there also is beliefs, attitudes, and judgments being made. So what becomes really significant is that these memories really dictate to your life. They have, and you, so I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here, that what they will do is they keep recreating their reality. So whatever that emotion is, whether it's sad, disbelief, uncertainty, also thoughts like I'm not good enough, etc., can be a myriad of things, that it keeps repeating. And now why it keeps repeating, it's like that inner part of you that's frozen in space and time asserts itself out into the life and recreates the feeling, because then it feels safe and secure, because this is what it knows. It doesn't know love, that's for sure, in the beginning. It doesn't know that I'm good and I'm fantastic and I can do whatever it is that I truly want. Now, these time periods in our memory banks are actually create what we call our personal programs. And the personal programs are basically basic beliefs, attitudes, and judgments that run our world and keep cropping up over and over again. I have people come in to see me and say, I don't know why I'm procrastinating, or I don't know why I'm doing this, that, or the other, depending on each person having a sense of direction. I'm just going to do a little thing here. We go there. Put me back. Okay, so we had a little slip up there, and I somehow had someone else come in, I guess. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was filming myself, not the world. Now, what else can we say about these? Because these frozen memories can be complicated. In strong trauma, that part of you that's experiencing can make several different decisions. Now, they're all happening in a twinkling of an eye, and therefore within that memory, There can be 7 different aspects. Often these decisions do not speak to each other. They may not even know the other one exists, but often they're conflicting decisions. One part of that element of the decision may say, I can do this, I can handle this, I can do anything, and the other one says, let me go hide, I don't want to do anything with this ever. Another one can say some other supporting energy that or feeling that will get you through things. So it all changes in so many different directions, in so many different ways. And so it's really important that you believe in yourself that these emotional feelings that we're frozen into can be transformed. And I think that's the miracle, is that we can do that. I know I did a lot of work going back in my memories, and I would start because remember, I didn't remember my past too much. And so I would start with a memory that would come up, and I would begin to work with that, and then I would have it remembered back. And that's when I began to realize over time how important past lives were, because it would be like you would start, let's say, at a 24-year-old memory. The 24-year-old would remember being 18, say, because there'd be another block there. This is very similar. And then that 18-year-old would remember being 12. 12-year-old would remember being 6. The 6-year-old would remember being 2. The 2-year-old will remember getting born. And the birth baby will remember conception. And then from there is just a step to preconception. But sometimes, and this is where it got very interesting, we would come down, let's say, to a 2.5-year-old, and then the 2.5 would say to the 2.5, well, when can you look around your memory banks and go to the first time you remember this feeling or thought? And it would skip into a past life. So if you didn't know the importance of past lives and how to clear the past lives, often what happens in some you might say the process is you get stuck. So past lives and past life regression understanding is really, really important to know what to do and how to clear that life, so it still doesn't affect this one. Because, and I've said this before in one of my talks, maybe 2 of the talks, whenever we experience a feeling / emotion, we reach back in our memory banks and remake the same decision that we made last time we experienced the feeling. Therefore, all our early memories, which go into creating our personal programs, were created from past life experiences or other experiences. And this is very important to remember and to recognize, that we are a product of a whole soul evolution. Now, I'm going to bring the soul in for a little bit here. Memories are very different because they're very much a part of who we are. But our soul, there is I find a misnomer out there that the soul is all clear. I call them soul scars, and that we carry on the soul from lifetime after lifetime. Sometimes even coming into being in earth, coming in and joining in into this earthly plane. Often we come in with, people have come in with anger or regret or bewilderment, or like I had in a session the other day, not even knowing where on earth they'd ended up. All these things then get reflected into the different lives that people have. And then now they're in present time dealing with whatever's coming up and trying to make sense of it. And the soul is sitting there going, perhaps not even really connected well. It's another thing that I find, is that able to integrate the soul back into the beingness of who we are, to have the soul touch into the lovingness of this universe and bringing that forward in the direction of who and what we are, how we are, what we are, who we are. And so these frozen memories are like, and the way I actually talk about it is like knots in a tree. There's a knot in a tree. I actually don't know how they form the knot. Sometimes maybe being branches cut off or falling off. But anyway, there's the knot in a tree, and the tree grows on around it. And that's what we do. We have a memory that's frozen and we grow. Now, what I find today, if sometimes you run into experiences in your life, and I know I sometimes talk without thinking. It's I haven't still been able to stop that habit. And so I'll say something and I'll feel really upset about it. How come I said it? Or how come I said it that way? How come I responded? The usual self-beat stuff that goes on. And so a couple of days go by, maybe 2, 3, 4, even a week, but somehow I keep going back to that event where I perhaps didn't handle it in the way I would have liked to. That is a frozen memory. It may be 5 days old, but it's frozen in space and time now. And the ability to be able to go back in there and unfreeze that frees you up in the present to continue on. And less likely the next time you say something, you're not going to feel bad about it. You're just going to accept it. Oh, gee, goofed up again. And it's much more fluid and much more easier. And the lovingness that you have inside yourself is able to shine through easier because there's no current knots. Of course, for myself, I had to do a lot of work about my early years. And a lot of my memories have come that I do have now, that I can remember back, came from going back in space and time. And so it's really, to me, about being in the present, not so much hanging out in your past. You want that clear. And once you have gone through a process where you actually go all the way back into your preconception and realize why you're here, or why you set up that you're here, what was the purpose of having the parents you had, what you were wanting to create in this life, and then being able to clear out those things that are blocking you from creating what you really truly want in your life. Now, luckily, I have other processes as well now that take care of some of that. But it's that knowingness, that frozen part of us. And once you've experienced being able to reconnect with, first of all, a memory, communicate with the memory, and then transform that energy. Now, how do we transform that? Is that we get the memory, whether you're young, whether you're older, whether it was 3 weeks ago or 30 years ago, to reconnect with what we call the love energy of this unit, this planet anyway, this planet. So in connecting with love, there is no judgment in love, regardless of what you might read or any other thing. When you feel it in your heart, in your soul, in your beingness, you know that you're not judged. Even though all you need to do is forgive yourself, because in this energy of love, we talk about being forgiven, but the truth is, forgiveness is not a part of it. It's just pure acceptance of who you are. And that's lovingness then taken into a memory. We can let go. We can let that, whatever it is we're holding on to, whatever decision that we made, the attitudes, the judgments, we can let that go, and the love can come in and fill that up, all the energy. Because again, I think I've spoken on this several times. If you are going to clear energy, you must replace it with something, or your body will replace it, or your frozen memory will replace it with what it knows. So it's very important to have an energy exchange. We let go the anger, we bring in the love. We let go the sadness, we bring in the love. And slowly and surely, the inner core of you becomes stronger and stronger to be able to maintain the lovingness of who you are. Because that's what you are. And that's what we want to do in this day and age where we have a huge opportunity of enlightenment. We have a huge opportunity of being able to, whether you want to call it heal or transform or change, who we are. It's massive. The abilities that we have, the tools we have at our hands, the knowledge that we have about how we develop or have developed and how we can change that to be the person we want to be, the person that is in alignment with the greater power that is here, that we realize it is a part of who we are, that it is a part of all that we are and how we create. So just know that. Know that lovingness is the letting go of that which restricts us and brings in the knowingness of connection to the loving force that exists on this planet, that is there for you to utilize. So when you do beat yourself up, all you're doing is you're staying in your little self. You are not being part of the larger picture. You're not being part of the larger format. You're not allowing the essence of who you are to expand and grow. Now, I'm just wondering if what I've said, if there's anybody out there that is watching right now in the live program here that would have a question that you'd like to ask. And if you do, you can unmute yourself and just begin to ask it, because I just want to, I think I've set the basis of how this works. How to unfreeze memories is actually working into the transformation element and using the universal, which we call universal love, but it's really earth love, to transform that, to free us up from these programs. Now, I think in another program, I talked about my pickle jar, my notes, my pickle jar format. It's a metaphor I made up a long time ago to explain personal programs. And I'm going to say it here again because I love the story of the pickle jar metaphor, and some people have actually said, tell us your pickle jar metaphor again. We'd like to hear it again. So I'm going to say it again. So remember, it's like you go out to the store and you buy a jar of pickles. This time, though, this jar has a really wide mouth because you got to get your hand in the pickle jar. So we do take some license on this. Now, if you're like me, the first thing you do is you either bang it or you bang it, turn it upside down and bang it on the block, make it hard to open it. So there was a while there when I didn't have any strength in my hands and I couldn't even open a jar. But now using perhaps a knife underneath, or I can usually get it open. Now, the coming in with the tightness is very significant of life. Very often we go along in our lives and everything is running really, really smoothly and it's all good. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere comes this bang. In the tarot, it's the tower. It comes out of nowhere and all of a sudden you're having to do all this bits and pieces. So that's when we're banging it, when we're trying to open it. It's like life saying, take a look at this. And then you open it up and what do you see facing you is all these, usually 4, 5, 6 pickles looking at you, very tightly packed. These are all your major personal programs that run your life. When you reach in to get one of those pickles out, the pickle that comes first is usually the hardest to pull out because there's no space. And usually when you first begin to do this work, when you first begin to go inside, it takes a little longer to pull that, to get used to that, to know the process, to get it working. So you get the first one out, it's gone. Then the next one is there. And then the next one. And often I find when people start doing this, they begin to feel overwhelmed because when does this ever stop? And because it does. Eventually you get space. Now the magical thing in the pickle jar is your self-love. So every time you remove a program, which by the way can also contain other people's energy, I neglected to mention that. So that's another kind of story about needing to release other people's energy. So we get one pickle out, we get 2, 3, 4, and then this is when my students would often say, when does this ever end? Well, it will. Keep on trucking, keep on going. And then one day it's like, oh, sort of peace. feeling happy inside, feeling the self-love, feeling confident, all those things. Because all the major programs are gone and there's a lot more self-love in your pickle jar. But now we have to put our hand in there and start looking for them. And it's true. We'll run up against them sometimes. Something will happen and a memory will come in. Something else will happen and it sparks another memory. And then we begin to get another pickles out, transformed into self-love. Finally, there really is no really big pickles left. But when you look down at the bottom, you'll find usually there is some dillweed. This represents the genetic patterns that are passed on. And I know I've spoken about this before in another talk, how the genetics play a part of who we are. How our souls often will pick our body because the genetic programming coming in from the sperm and the egg is similar to what the soul could be holding on to. But anyway, so we pull out all that, we work with that and get that all out. And then just when we think we're all done, if you hold the pickle jar up, you find all these little bitsy pieces floating around, all the little bits of pickle that have fallen off or come this powdered ways. And sometimes those are the more difficult ones to catch hold of. You've got to be really quick sometimes to pick that up. I have a personal story that I found a past life, which I would probably never, ever have found except for a series of circumstances that happened in my life. And it was, I won't tell you the circumstances because that's personal to myself and my then partner. But I went for a walk and I was thinking about the feeling that I had and how I had overreacted totally in a situation that was like, and I really was upset, super upset, in fact. Probably one of the most upsetting things I ever had because it hurt me. I had a physical pain. So I was walking along and lived in a city that was by the ocean, and I was walking along the boardwalk, so to speak, and I was thinking about this when the next minute I was transformed into another scene, and I saw these horsemen coming towards me with swords raised up, and they were dressed a certain way, these swordsmen, and that was the trigger point that had happened the previous night, and a certain kind of headgear. And anyway, what I realized as I kind of let that memory unfold was that the village had gotten wiped out. And right where I'd had the pain, when the men came down in the village, they literally killed the village. They had, and this was it was in another country and centuries earlier. They had taken the sword handle and hit me with it right where all the pain was that I had experienced the night before. And I was left for dead because of the way I fell. I was protected and it looked like I was dead, but I wasn't dead. And then I ended up being found and put with another village, and I had what's called survivor's guilt. So this one incident in my life opened up a whole lot of things that I was able to transform because I knew the process. I knew how to do it. I knew what it was. By the time I finished that walk, that life had been transformed, the memory had been transformed. I had cleared that little bit that was in my little pickle jar, that was gone. And I look for those moments when I have an overreaction to something. What has created that? Often, if it's around a word, I have talked about how word chains can be transformed. You can transform words, and but it's also like it's so important to recognize we are not in this world totally alone by ourselves. We are not. We are have lived. Most of us, not everyone, but most of us who are interested in growth, who are interested in energy, who are interested in spiritual philosophy, we've spent many lifetimes here. We have spent many times on what I call this emotional planet. And this emotional planet is consistently running on feelings and what we do with them, and to be able to acknowledge them and work with them. So it's really really important to know if you have a memory that keeps reoccurring, whether you were 4, 14, or 40, that memory is frozen. The odds are it does not know you're growing on up. The odds are there is a chain of them, different memories going back with the same energy. I do need, before I close this, to say very often when I'm looking at a bottom line of a memory, when I'm working with a memory and I'm looking for a bottom line, I'll also look to how does that feel, and I'll have the person follow the feeling to the first time they remember having it. That's often when we'll end up in a past life. Not always, but often. Usually it's either sometime previous or we'll jump to a past life. And so we are more than what we realize. And our memories, which are so important to us, we want them to be able to be free flowing. I have a lot of memories, but they're not stuck. They don't kind of come up and sort of be there all the time. And the feeling in them, the energy in them is supportive energy, happy energy, energy that supports me in my life, that reminds me of loving family, reminds me of good times. And because the other feelings have been transformed. We don't need to hold on to those. There's no win. There's no win in those emotions and feelings. And it's understanding that it is the universal love force that makes all the difference. So I'm sorry nobody has any questions for me. So I'm just going to remind that if you do have a question that you'd like to ask me, you can always contact me at norma.cowie@gmail.com, or you can visit the website at normacowie.com. And now my dear webmaster, who I absolutely appreciate, has made a link there that you can get to my YouTube channel quite easily, and you can watch the different talks that are up there. And also a lot of stuff I've done over the years is up there. There's not just this. And I haven't even talked about all the tarot stuff that I've done in the years. And remember, my Facebook page is for this kind of work is Norma Cowie Psychic Life Consultant. So Facebook plays a part also in this. I give thanks for you being here today. I give thanks for us being able to spare this time together. And if you want to rewatch this, this will appear up on my YouTube channel under the title of Frozen Memories. So thank you and have a great day.